Hello, good people. This is a PSA from TSA. You are listening to the Underground Railroad Show at Spreaker.com. I am the great TSA with my assistant, That Ninja. I'm sorry for the lack of attendance. I was busy spiking faces and beating data dominoes. TSA out.
Oh, man, I love the game of golf. It was a beautiful day out here today, wasn't it, baby girl? You didn't think it was a nice day today?
Well, I am sweating all over, so no, I didn't really think it was.
Well, I mean, you got to drive the car. You got to drive the car, and it did have a hood on it, so it kept the sun off of you.
Yeah, but it had no air conditioning.
Well, okay, fair enough. So, we're going to get something to eat, right?
Of course.
Cool.
And you're obviously paying, right?
Always. Always. Man, golf is a fun sport. Hey, I drove the ball pretty well today, don't you think?
Pretty well to the far right, yeah.
But okay, even though I went right, my iron game was really good, and I was able to fight my way out of that.
Yeah, but you hit it into the sand, and you did that quite often, might I add.
Even when I went in the sand, my chip was really tight, so I was able to get out of there and get close to the flag.
After 3 times.
You have to admit, though, my putting game was really good, and it saved me a lot of the times from all of the bad hits I had out in the fairway.
And it only took you 11 holes. Listen, until you get a good golfing game, I'm going to keep giving you shit.
I'm improving. I mean, since I've gotten started, haven't I got a lot better?
Yes, you've gotten better since your injury.
We don't have to talk about my shoulder, but I mean, that's another reason why it's coming along slowly, but, you know, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it.
Sure.
Hey, baby girl, I'm about to go hop in the shower. When I get out, we head out to the volleyball tournament, okay?
Okay. Oh, can I use my the computer?
Oh, yeah, of course, baby. Of course. Hey, baby girl.
Yeah.
Repetition breeds familiarity.
Familiarity breeds comfort. Comfort breeds complacency or success. We're going for the latter rather than the former.
All right, good deal. Handle business.
Okay.
Hey, remember you're a beast out there. Act like it.
I will.
All right.
Let me see what he got in these emails. Spam. Overdue bills. Not surprised. Fuck the police coming straight from the underground. Young nigga got it bad 'cause he's broke. What is this? Sarah? Linda? Becky? Amber? Amy? Molly? Ginger? Heather? Karen? Oh, hell no. We are not having this. No, I don't want no Pancake Tuesdays. Oh God, delete. No, I do not want your lemon bars, Karen. Oh, my dad's gonna get...
Do you have strong opinions and you're looking for a way to express them? Are you tired of carbon copy sports radio that infests the airwaves? Do you have creative concepts and ideas that you want to share with the world? Then this is not the commercial for you. This commercial is all about
Kinko's University.
That's right. Kinko's University gets you prepared for the podcasting world when you don't have the chops for it. If you're one of the many people looking to get into podcasting, but you just don't have the skill, Kinko's University is the university for you.
I want to do a podcast, but where do I start? And what do I talk about? Kinko's University.
Don't worry, here at Kinko's University, the first thing we teach you about is OPP. That's right, other people's perspective. So you can always have something to talk about getting it from another source.
Podcasting looks fun, but do I really have to do all that research and show prep? Kinko's University.
Absolutely not. Here at Kinko's, we have classes like No Preparation 101, where we teach you to get around all of that pesky show prep because we know you don't have the time.
I wonder what the best time slot is to get the most listeners.
Kinko's University.
Don't worry, here at Kinko's, we have a class called Recycling Ideas 101, where you can find a time slot that works and just jump in that slot to try to make it happen for yourself.
Kinko's University.
I want to come up with new content and subject matter, but I'm not that creative.
Kinko's University.
You'll also take Regurgitation 101, which will help you come up with other people's subject matter that you can recycle and make your own. That's right, here at Kinko's, we teach you how to get around hard work, getting new wrinkles in your brain, and having to work hard at your craft. Come to Kinko's, where you can take these top courses with top teachers. Most people that go to Kinko's graduate with Kinko's degrees, that's right, as master copiers. Kinko's University, for the skilled impaired.
Kinko's University is not a real university and is not accredited. You don't actually learn any skills. You just learn how to mimic people who have actual skill.
Underground Railroad Show with that ninja. All aboard, have your tickets ready because the train has arrived. Delayed or on time, it's time to get on board.
What's going on, fam? This is the Underground Railroad Show, hosted by your boy, that ninja. Thank you for coming aboard, and I hope you are enjoying the ride thus far. I apologize for the late start. Let me start off by apologizing for not pulling the train out of the station on Monday and Lunes because the day just didn't go right. It just, I'm not going to give all the excuses. I just didn't have the energy for the show, so I did not do it. Got in too late. Didn't start the show, and I wanted to start it, but that's fine. We're going to jump right into it. The Black Panther series part 2. The Black Panther series part 2. Part 1, we covered the Black Panthers, the initial start of it, the grassroots, the founders, Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale. I didn't dig into Huey P. Newton. Let me rephrase that. I didn't go into detail with Huey P. Newton because I focused on Bobby Seale on part 1. Part 2 will focus on Huey P. Newton. Part 3 will focus on Fred Hampton. And part 4 will focus on Stokely Carmichael. If I change that, I'll let you know. That will not be consecutively because we have the annual show on religion. I think it's the first week in April. And I haven't done a good job of setting that up. Phone calls need to be made. So I got a phone call to make, and I have something to lay out. So in preparation for that, the series might get broke up, but I wasn't going to break up. You know, Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton were going to be first. Slow down. Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton were going to be the first 2 installments, so I'm going to get those 2 in. There may be a pause in between. We do need to get the bracket tournament together, but that can continue to go down the line. We can do that whenever. Again, I really like the off season. Of course, for those who might not know, I'm a big football person, love-hate relationship. For everything that the NFL does that makes me want to watch, and I'm like, oh, I need to see that, or I have to see that. Then they do something else that makes me say, ooh. it's a real abusive relationship. The only abusive relationship I've ever voluntarily stayed in. Damn shame. I guess to football is to me about the same as this podcasting thing.
Shit, man, it's got me, man. I don't got no control over it, man. I try to kick, man. Shit just be calling me, man. Be calling me, man. I just gotta go to it. Need help, man.
All right. I'm not going to delay for long. It's allowing y'all to get in. I'm going to get right into it. I'll tell you what I can do. Let me do a quick review, then I'll jump right into it. I won't do any outside things. I will do, at one point, I'm going to do a show addressing the things that have happened in football, but there's no immediate need to talk about it because everything I have to say, I can say later because the season will not start anytime soon. We still have the draft coming up, which means I will have the annual draft show. And I haven't asked yet, but unless he's priorly obligated, or unless he has prior obligations, rather, I'm almost certain that the yellow one will accompany me once again in the annual draft show where we cover the first round on Thursday. I give you we both put our GM hats on and we tell you, and I know it's hard for some people to separate themselves from the 4-letter network's grasp. But what we do, or what we not attempt to do, but what we do is put on our GM hats and tell you what we'd like each team to do if we were the GM. We'll also tell you what we think they're going to do. So we're going to give you a version of the draft that has nothing to do with what actually happens, but we'll tell you what we think that team should do. And surprisingly, over the last 2 drafts, especially, maybe the last 3, a lot of teams have actually addressed areas of need. But just speaking on the reason that the series may get broken up, and it was showing religion coming up, I don't have to stress those football moves. But looking at the date, you know what? If I don't miss a day, I think I actually can get all of these in, and the very next show should be the annual show on religion. If I'm looking at it right. If not, I'm going to have to break up at least one of them. But part 4 should be on Stokely Carmichael unless I change my mind. But I thank you for tuning in. And also, another thing, I'll post the last 2 shows for anybody that hasn't found the YouTube page and can't find the show. So that I should have done already. My apologies for that. So after the show, I'll post those shows and I'll be sure to post this one. Belated thanks to everybody that participated in the first installment of the Black Panther series where I discussed Bobby Seale. A lot of good back and forth, a lot of good dialogue. I look at this as pretty much an international think tank because you can listen to the show from anywhere. So I appreciate the dialogue, the back and forth, the difference in opinions, the adage to the show. So I appreciate that. All right, with that being said, we're going to get into it today. Well, we went over in the first series, just discussed the Black Panthers, when they were founded, some of the things that prompted it, the assassination of Dr. King that spiked membership, because if I had to speculate, because a man that stood for nonviolence and again was coming into a realization, and he spoke about that when I in the annual show on Dr. King and Malcolm X, we played excerpts as I did my what I like to call my interviews with these individuals, and I'm going to give myself the privilege of doing that today with brother Huey P. Newton. But during that time, I did one of his later interviews in New York on NBC where he discussed his evolution in thinking that they never show when they're bastardizing his name on the annual holiday. So today we're going to dig into Huey P. Newton, but in that first installment, I'd like to thank y'all for that back and forth. It was enjoyable. We discussed the where the Black Panthers started. A lot of things that I didn't know. I didn't understand the 10-point plan in detail. We went over each point in the 10-point plan. I didn't see anything that would cause an individual of sane mind and body to describe these individuals as terrorists and or a hate group when they've yet to do that to any of these actual hate groups that consist of their cousins, brothers, aunties, nieces, aunts, and uncles. Here's what it is. But the extent of the breakfast programs, their age when they started these things, the background of Bobby Seale, and the things that shaped them. We are nothing but a summarization of our life's experiences. So you're some proposition of your life experiences. So the things that you go through shape you to a degree. The knowledge that you obtain throughout the years, your influences, the things you look at, and you could see how Bobby Seale ended up where he was at mentally and what helped to shape him. And looking into Huey P. Newton, and where I decided to grab the information from. There, several because of the internet, because of the many platforms that we have, mainly YouTube. You can find excerpts, and you can find documentation. You can find actual interviews. You can listen to the man in his own words. Come to your own conclusions about some of the things that he's saying. Really, you don't have to. He's very direct and poignant in what he's talking about. So there were a number of excerpts I could have chose from. I chose to go with the year that he I'm not going to get into that. I chose to go with an interview he did in 1989 just because he's had a chance to evolve and come to a certain point of view. He's able to reflect and speak on a multitude of things. Plus, that particular interview allowed me to go about this the way that I want to. So I chose to pull from that when I have a closing from an earlier interview when he was actually incarcerated in 1968 for wrongful incarceration that we'll get into today. So I'm going to pull excerpts from that when I do a Q&A with Huey P. Newton. But the things that I found out, and again, I knew a lot, but when I really dug into it, I can't imagine the way that cross-dressing ass Hoover had to reach to refer to these individuals as a hate group. They really and truly were doing what was necessary to, quote unquote, pull us up by our bootstraps, simply feeding, preventative health care, knowledge, acquiring knowledge, skills and training, discipline, self-pride. Again, in the midst of all of this, I think it needs to be I think it really needs to be reset that the only thing that was attempting to be accomplished was human decency and equal rights. That's it. And the pushback that still occurs to this day is incredible. But let's go ahead and get into it. The Black Panther Party Series Part 2 featuring Huey P. Newton. And I'm going to do a Q&A with him. Let me go ahead and do quick intros for those that are in right now. We're going to jump right into it. I'm these notes. I'm trying to make sure there was something that I wanted to say before I got started. 16, that's not that bad. Okay. Let's go ahead and do intros, quick intros. Then I'm going to jump into it. You know what? As a matter of fact, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give you something to chew on first. Let's go ahead and get no. Let's do quick intros. Won't take long for those that have shown their faces thus far. Thank you for coming aboard once again. The Black Panther Series Part 2, and this is what I wanted to say. I really enjoy the off season. I'm a football cat, but when football season is over again, draft show coming up, annual show on religion coming up. Two of my favorite shows. These are some of the annual shows that I do every year. 10th year, if I'm not off my damn 10th year in podcasting. So the annual draft show is just the first round. It's just I'm a football head, and doing that and having a back and forth, having on the spot judgment about the draft, listening with the volume off, just kind of watching. It's always a good time listening to the reactions. I'm always, even though it's expected to a degree, I'm always taken back, sometimes pleasantly surprised. The annual show on religion, one of the shows that y'all actually stay on topic, which I really enjoy and appreciate. That's always a good time. And again, I'll always reiterate that the first time I did a show on religion, so many people bounced. And looking back on it, looking at some of the characters who were around and understanding who people really are, I can imagine the reasons for that. But I would not take it back for anything. I appreciate the people that stay around and actually able to have a back and forth. And I think it really kind of just reinforces my beliefs that a conversation, can take people sideways. But looking forward to those shows. Saying all that to say that I enjoy the off season and being able to just do whatever. The draft show, that that's kind of set because of the draft itself. The annual show on religion, the annual bracket show. Probably do at least 2 of them before football season starts. All these other topics that I can get into. 2 more installments on this particular series, and there are going to be some other things I'm going to talk about as I looked into the subject matter. Last year I realized I hadn't talked about I hadn't done anything on the Moors, so we did a show on the Moors. I realized I hadn't done it. There were two in particular. It was the Moors, and what was the other one? And I couldn't believe I had Marcus Garvey. So the two last year that I just stopped and thought about, I was like, I haven't done anything on Marcus Garvey. So we did a show on Marcus Garvey, did a show on the Moors. So these are the things I like to do during the so-called dog days of summer, or really because I don't discuss a lot of round ball. Not until we really get into March Madness and the bracket. That's what it was. One quick thought: the yellow one. If you're not a part of the Posting in the Paint bracket, become a part of the Posting in the Paint bracket. The yellow one has a annual bracket. This will be my third time filling out a bracket, unless it's my fourth and I've lost count. But I've got to get that turned in within the next couple of days. Obviously, it being Tuesday. So looking forward to that, just enjoying it, giving you my annual donation. My annual donation of, wait, let me get rid of that. Didn't know that was up there. But giving you my annual donation, which is going to be a normal thing. But I'm going to enjoy doing that. I'm going to enjoy the broadcast, not the broadcast, but the tournament and the tournament and watching the teams, getting into it. And at that point, I'll have something to say because I'll actually be watching the games. Up to this point, I haven't done that. So I have no opinions on the games in themselves because I haven't watched. That's what it was. Posting in the Paint bracket this Thursday, March Madness kicking off. Now, that won't prevent me from continuing with the series. It may. I may do a separate show. The first time I really get in the round ball, I plan on having the yellow one on the show with me as a referral because it just makes sense. I know he's been passionately watching and he's very opinionated, being a former college great. So he's going to have things to say and opinions on basketball, and I can play off of that. Basically, what everybody else does, make the show real easy, but I'm doing it to have a reference point with somebody who has an opinion on round ball that I actually respect because they're coming from a place of actual skill and expertise and passion for the game. Same passion I have for pigskin. And again, I do love round ball. I want to make sure that I point out that my issues are with everything around the game, not in the game itself. Let's go ahead and do some quick intros. Then we're going to jump directly into this. Again, I've chosen to go with the Q&A. I'm going to give myself the privilege of giving a Q&A to the great Huey P. Newton and the entire coverage of him in this particular episode of the series is going to be my back and forth with that and my comments afterwards. That's going to be the way I'm going to go about it. I'll stop after so many questions and read some of the chat, and that's how we're going to run with it, especially considering the start time on the show. So let's go ahead and get into it. First man aboard the train, coming aboard with his traditional, wait a minute. Okay, I'm good. With his traditional and his usual. Good evening.
Motherfucker.
We have none other than the great JBJ. What's going on, sir? Thank you for coming aboard. Hope you are enjoying the ride thus far. JBJ was here the very first time the train pulled out, as well as a multitude of others. Real quick reset, considering some of the problems on the show. This is funny. The first time I launched the show on Spreaker, the show dropped, and I launched again, and everybody that was on the first installment didn't come back when I relaunched. Possibly they were listening. They were possibly listening, but they did not come into the chat room. I can go back and still look at that show now, and in the chat room, out of everybody that came back, the only person that's still around is JBJ. I'm not saying he was the only person that might have been listening, but the only person in the chat room was JBJ. Now, the first installment had a lot more people in it, but being a novice podcaster, not knowing any better, and considering the room I had, it wasn't necessary. I deleted that first episode because I really didn't get a chance to get into it. I should have kept it, but I had no reference point for knowing it was going to be a source of information later on when people on the train had a problem with me pointing out that JBJ was here for the first show. That's not a knock on anybody else. It's just a fact that I can verify via that chat room. It is what it is. But again, thank you for coming aboard, JBJ. JBJ said repetition breeds familiarity. Familiarity breeds comfort. Comfort breeds success. It got amended by a third party, and that's when we changed it to repetition breeds familiarity. Familiarity breeds complacency or comfort. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? Fuck that remix. Made me stutter for no reason. The remix was repetition breeds familiarity. Familiarity breeds comfort or complacency. We're going for the former rather than the latter. So it got amended. Won't get into why. But that's just something myself and TSA said before every volleyball game and sometimes before practice. That's just something that we did before every game. That's what he's referring to. And that was in one of those skits. Coming aboard the train to his traditional bomb drop for slapping the sauce out of his wife's hands when she attempted to apply it to my ribs. Real talk, true story.
That motherfucker must have lost his goddamn mind.
No, actually, he was a great human being for that. And it did cost him, and I appreciate his sacrifice. And I would understand completely if from here on out, he threw me under the bus. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you none other than the great Sidney Jackson. Sidney Jackson is hysterical. He comes in saying, "What up with it?" And then he says, "The 12th annual parade of heathens," with an exclamation mark. It is not a parade of heathens, sir. It is a discussion between for the last 4 or 5 installments, what you would call a believer, or 2 or 3 out of those installments, a ordained minister, ordained pastor, against myself, who I guess you would deem as someone who's still studying. If you want to give me a label, I guess agnostic, but someone who's still studying. But actually, it would be the 10th, and this my math is off. No, wait a minute, is that right? You know what? Let me. Oh, the year just flipped. This is my 11th year. I'm thinking this last year. This is my 11th year, isn't it? You know what? I'll get into that later. But almost, Sydney. If I'm not mistaken, this is year number 11. I started in 2016 or 2017. I can go back and I can check that really quickly. But you know that's not important right now. This is funny. Sidney Jackson, the Centers Players Ball. So you're gonna say the 12th? Okay. Let's address this. We got time, and then we're gonna jump right into it because it's gonna be directly into the interview, sir. I consider myself a messenger with these shows. The 12th annual parade of heathens.
God damn anybody who doesn't glorify his work.
The Centers Players Ball.
Go to hell. God damn! Jesus, wow. Come on down and kill that monkey Jesus.
Sidney Jackson said, "The Backsliders Banquet." The Backsliders Banquet. Now that's funny. Now that's
Go
funny.
to hell.
The Backsliders Banquet.
Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Won't he fight your battles? Won't he make your enemies your footstool? Won't he give you joy in sorrow? Won't he give you hope for tomorrow? Won't he dry your tears? Won't he, won't he, won't he, won't he, won't he? Won't he, won't he, won't he, won't he, won't he?
That man said the 12th annual parade of heathens, the Centers Players Ball, the Backsliders Banquet. Oh, Sidney. Oh, that's hysterical, sir.
The truth is for everybody, but everybody might not be for the truth.
JBJ said there's a lot of Black Panther shows you're committed to. It's Sir, they're pretty much in the books. But am I committed to a lot of Black Panther shows, sir?
You're right. It's fact.
I am. And I know what you're thinking.
You're robbing us, you son of a bitch.
But it's not the case, sir. It's not the case. I got you. I got you, sir. I got you. JBJ worried about how many shows I'm committed to. But I got you, sir. I got you. Sidney Jackson said, I've watched a lot of 88 minutes. I've watched a total of not even 88. A total of 68 minutes of college basketball this year. Despite me not knowing most players or teams, that won't stop me from talking like an expert. That's fucking hysterical. You know, and let me just say, Sydney, in respect for you speaking about that honestly, let me just say, I could fake it. I could fake it like a motherfucker easily. I just don't believe in that. Because I talk about people that do that, I don't want to be one of those people. So I could do that. I could fake it. I could pretend like I've been watching basketball. I could sit here and speak to y'all like I've really been into it. But I'm not going to disrespect y'all like that. I'm not going to disrespect y'all like that. I will sit here and run off some bullshit, but it's easily done. I could look at some articles. I could call ABM. I could just call ABM and have ABM just run off, you know, I could just ask him general questions and just have him run off information. And I'd be prepared for all situations. But I'd rather not fake the funk. I'd rather not fake the funk. JBJ said that's a lot of Black Panther shows you've committed to, sir.
It's a setup. It's a fucking setup. It's a setup. It's a fucking setup.
I'm disappointed in your lack of faith in me, sir.
It's a fucking setup.
We got my man Sluggo the motherfucking Hammer on the train. What's going on, sir? Thank you for coming aboard and spending a little bit of time. I appreciate it. Hope you are enjoying the ride thus far, sir. Sidney Jackson said, no, read that one. I think we can jump into it. JBJ says, Sluggo went to watch Team Venezuela put USA in the Buckeye position. That's funny. I forgot that he is really into the European football. JBJ criticizing and obviously paying attention when he tells me,
A-E-I-O-U. Use your vowels.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it? What the fuck is wrong with you?
You're on that bullshit today. I swear.
I forgot how complex that was. Y'all don't understand the Dr. Dre type mix I put on this shit.
A-E-I-O-U. Use your vowels.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it? What the fuck is wrong with you?
You're on that bullshit today. I swear.
Correction. JBJ said, no, sir. I was speaking of the World Baseball Classic. You know what? I did see a couple of things about that does look interesting. I guess that would be entertaining. Okay, I got you. All right, let's jump into it, especially with the late start, bottom of the hour. Let's get right into it, man. I appreciate y'all for coming aboard. Part 2 of the Black Panther series. We're going to focus on Huey P. Newton. And as a matter of fact, let's get the proper backdrop. No, that's wrong. Once again, this is the Underground Railroad Show hosted by your boy, That Ninja. Black Panther series part 2. On the first installment, we focused on the foundation itself, the Black Panther Party, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. They later amended the name because, as always, America pretended to be offended by verbiage. Again, they want us to forget and or downplay, ignore or acquiesce to violent actions, but they get to be offended and sensitive and fragile over verbiage. True or not? True or not? So for this reason, the name of the party was amended because they pretended to be offended or attempt to label them as some type of hate group. When at the end of the day, they actually hate black people, which is why when we assemble, they look for a reason to criticize it. Your fear and your lack of testicular fortitude, poor upbringing, and cowardice is really not our fault. But I digress. The Black Panther Party series part 2, focusing on Huey P. Newton. And we're just going to start here. Now, these are excerpts from an interview, and I'm going to do a Q&A and have comments throughout. So let's just get into it. And again, I'll say what I said before. I feel robbed and cheated. And let me say this on the point of like technology. And this is something that my best friend always told me to do, was to read comments. And I know that most people already do that, but you know, when you get into, even if it's something funny just to look at, you might want to read the comments. I can give an example. Listening to music, listening to I don't know what Tupac cut I was listening to, but there was some young cats in there speaking about, you know, how much they like the music. And one of them asked, "What's your favorite Tupac song?" And I'm not big on commenting, but when something interests me, I may jump into it. So I said, you know, that question, I said that answer could change every day, but for today, I'm trying to remember what song I went with. Actually, I know it was something off of his first 2 albums. The latest I would have went is Strictly for My Niggas. Drop the drums, here it comes. Only got 2 minutes to bounce, and every second counts. Is that representing? No, that's not representing. I don't know why I can't remember the name of that song right now, but I believe I put that one in that day. You know, they responded back. You know, I think I said this might be a little low. I said this might be before y'all time, but I'll go with this today. And he actually went back and listened to it and commented about it later. Just that little back and forth. Saying that to say that when I was doing research and looking up things, you were able to look at some of the comments, and it was encouraging to see how many young people were in there listening to it and understanding what he was talking about it, and actually, you know, even having that wherewithal and desire to look into it. That was encouraging to see that. So that was a, you know, kind of a cool thing about looking at the comments or whatever. So let's get into it. And I'm going to conduct this as if I had the privilege of interviewing Huey P. Newton. And there, again, the other comments and details we're going to get into within the course of the interview. So let's get into it. Focus being Huey P. Newton, co-founder of the Black Panther Party. Brother Newton, let's just start with something simple. What's your background, your upbringing? You know, can you tell me about your parents and how you ended up in Oakland? And before I do that, I should adjust the volume. All right, adjustment made. So once again, brother Huey, could you tell me a little bit about your background and where you grew up?
My family moved from Louisiana to Oakland, primarily seeking a better life. My father was a farmer in Louisiana and a preacher, and he moved out to the Bay Area in order to work in the shipping yards. It was a naval supply, it was called at the time, and that was the reason most blacks moved out for work, better pay, and a better life. Yes, my father was in.
I apologize for that pause. Let's skip a little bit. So again, that was something that occurred back then, you know, moving for work. And I found it interesting that his father was a preacher and a farmer, so obviously a hard-working man, but he still dedicated himself to the cloth. And you know, again, that was a very prominent. I mean, still is. I'm saying like it's not now, but especially in those times, pastor was one of the greatest things you could be, especially due to the limitations that Black people had. And, I'm not going to get into all those details. Tune in in about 2 to 3 weeks for that. But interesting that his father was a pastor and a farmer. I found that interesting just because, he did preach, but back then, you did what you did. You still did your job, your work, whatever you did to try to support yourself and your family. And then you took on the responsibility of being the pastor of whatever church that you were over and or that you ran. So I found that to be interesting. And, as he said, a lot of Black people moved to California, to Oakland for a better life. His actual name, Huey P. Newton. Interesting where his father got that name from. I didn't know this. But when I did some research, Brother Huey, can you elaborate on where you got your name from? And I believe your father named you, but can you elaborate on where you got your name?
My father was impressed with Huey P. Long, even though at the time in the South that blacks couldn't vote. That Huey P. Long was created the first black hospital and medical school. And even though Huey P. Long gave the pitch to the white races that they needed a black medical school and hospital because he didn't want white women seeing black men nude and so forth. My father thought Huey P. Long was using tricks in order to improve the situation for blacks at the time.
I think it's important to note that in this situation, and Huey P. Long was a white man. He was the governor of Louisiana, 1928 to 1932. So just a couple of things about Huey P. Long. And you have to understand standards. Okay, if you're a victim of abuse for years and you're getting punched and kicked, if you get into a relationship where you only get slapped every now and again, in your mind, that's an improvement. And that individual might even look like, a savior or a saint to you. Just saying that to say that in those times, for Huey P. Long to be somebody that, this was during the Great Depression, which I contend was more of a white thing. During the time of the Great Depression, Black people were out of slavery for less than 65, 35 years. We're talking less than 70 years out of slavery, like 60 years or so. That's like one fucking generation. That's the Great Depression was a thing, but not necessarily a thing for us. But the point being that he had a share the wealth type of policy where he limited how much wealth people could have so everybody could have a suitable income, because he obviously had enough common sense and understood that a city or society that didn't have people that could function was going to be a dysfunctional society. There was going to be crime and there were going to be more problems needed. So he made sanctions that limited the amount of wealth you could have, a cap, if you will. Sound familiar? He had something that he called the Fairness Act, where basically people would get equal pay and treatment. So you know what that meant. Now, this doesn't make him great necessarily. He just probably was a normal human being that after so much bullshit and all the savagery that he watched during his lifetime, I'm sure, and still was a part of seeing, he just decided, okay, let's get off we can stop being assholes now. So we're going to give a little cap so nobody can just be rich. And then there's somebody over here with absolutely nowhere to live and nothing to eat. That doesn't make sense. So he capped it off. You can only make X amount of money. Everybody can have, this type, everybody can make about this much, and everybody's going to be better off for it. He also had a Fairness Act where everybody's going to get paid equally. And this was odd because he was a Democrat, and back then the Democrats were the party that murdered and killed. Consequently, he was shot by a white man on the house of the state, whatever the little place was he worked at, the little state capitol or whatever. A white man shot him, probably a Democrat, because, he wanted to cap money and have a Fairness Act. We can't have that. You can't be semi-decent. We do ignorant shit around here. We're savages. Shot him in the face or some shit like that. He got killed. But and again, Huey P. Newton said it. He started the first black nursing school or medical school and a black hospital. And a way to kind of get it past. Well, you don't want white nurses seeing naked black men. You know how they feel about that. And Stay tuned. You know how they feel about that. So, it's like his father said, I think he was being clever. And however he was doing it, even if he felt that way, he actually did something for black people. And at that time, you couldn't help but to at least like that or give him credit for it, because shit was really bad. We were still being massacred all over the place, no insurance payments because they're calling it race riots because they're in charge of the narrative. But again, let's stay where we're at. So Huey P. Newton's father named him after Huey P. Long because of what Huey P. Long did for black people in Louisiana before another white man shot him for being semi-decent. So again, the history of the country is pretty damn repetitive. If you were a white person that acted in any type of sane or semi-decent manner, other white people killed you because we can't have that. And if you pay attention, you know what? I'm just going to stay focused. But it's just not saying he was a great man or anything, but just saying that even acting like that was too much. I forget the name of the cat that shot him in the face. Might not have been the face. I don't remember Carl Weiss. Dr. Carl Weiss, son-in-law of a political rival. Oh, wow, I didn't see this. You want to know something dramatic? Some movie-like shit? Huey P. Long's last words after being shot by the son-in-law of a political rival, Dr. Carl Weiss, at the Louisiana State Capitol. That's where it was, 1935. His final words, reportedly or allegedly, were, "God, don't let me die. I have so much to do." Now, that's some movie shit. Found that to be interesting. He was actually named after I guess what you would consider back then a decent Caucasian who actually had natural human decency and was shot by another Caucasian because we can't have that shit. Brother Huey, when were you first exposed to politics? What gave you, a lot of people's background and what they're exposed to kind of, shapes who they are. Brother Bobby Seale spoke about how he was exposed to it. Were you exposed to politics in any way? What gave you that drive and perspective?
They were always interested in politics, especially my father. As when we moved to Oakland, we were connected to the. Matter of fact, my father was the assistant pastor to Antioch Baptist Church. Reverend Thomas was the pastor, and this was down on 7th Street. The church became a member of the NAACP, and matter of fact, in the early 50s, that King was invited out by a collection of churches. And that was my first time hearing King at the Oakland Auditorium, I believe. But my family was interested in improving the political and economic situation of blacks.
So much like Brother Bobby Seale and really Malcolm X to a degree, with his family being Garveyites, his mother and dad being Garveyites, he was exposed to politics and improving the situation for black people by his parents, which is the case. And sometimes it's something outside of your upbringing, but not surprising that he was exposed to that early. By, as he said, mainly his father, or especially his father. And I'm going to get one more question in, and then I'll catch up on chat and continue the interview. Brother Huey, how did yourself and Bobby Seale determine the needs of the community? Because the Black Panther Party stood for the needs of the community. The 10-point plan was based on that. So what did you and Brother Bobby Seale do to determine what the needs of the community were?
At the time, the poverty program, the North Oakland Service Center was a part of the poverty program. And the service centers collected names of people on welfare, elderly people who needed aid. we use those lists to go around and canvass the community in order to find out the desires of the community. So we would go from house to house and explain to people our program. We printed up the first program at the North Oakland Service Center.
And Brother Bobby Seale spoke about this, and I think it's not only interesting, I think it's very important that it's noted that they didn't sit around and arrogantly say, we need this and we need that. They went around to the community via a list of people provided to them by the center and asked people, what are the needs of the community? What do you need? What are your requirements? What are your desires? What are your wants from your government and your politicians? And that's how they developed the 10-point plan. They went around and showed people said 10-point plan and asked them how they felt about it. And out of all of those people, only one person disagreed with 1 point. So they weren't just making things up for their own self-gratification and or monetary needs or some type of glory seeking. They really were for the people, a grassroots organization that was for the people. That's really the way that progress is manifested. And it's always torpedoed by infiltration by this crooked ass government, somebody with selfish ass needs. That they always infiltrate said situation and throw a monkey wrench in it. Sometimes literally when it comes to Marcus Garvey, because they destroyed those ships that he bought, and they always try to put it on him being a bad businessman. But how can I believe that report when the first 2 black people you ever hired in the FBI were to sabotage his movement? They threw things in the engine, just fucking up ships and shit, because they didn't want that type of commerce and ability for black people to go back and forth to Africa and have trade. So every time we were trying to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, there was government interference. So that statement in itself is bullshit. But I do think it's important to note that they just didn't sit around and make some declaration. They went around to the people and asked the people what they needed and what they desired within the community. I think it's very important to note that they wanted to work within the system and put forth political candidates to put in office that address the needs and wants of the people, not puppets that weren't going to speak up because they wanted to get along and hold some type of position and possibly have monetary benefit, which is what you really have nowadays. Bobby Seale spoke about that. I may play that. I didn't play that clip in his particular interview, but he said that Bobby Seale, and I'll read a chat after this and we'll continue with the interview. Bobby Seale said that the civil rights of the Brown versus Board of Education, desegregation, that being passed was half a victory. He said that when the Panthers put people in political office locally and federally, it was only half a victory. Why do I say it's half a victory? And I'm paraphrasing Bobby Seale. I'm saying it's half a victory because the Civil Rights Act didn't change the fact that these were racist ass people. They're still the same racist ass people. This act doesn't change that. Something that anybody with common sense has said over and over again. I know I've said it many a show. A declaration, a piece of paper, you signing some shit doesn't change the mentality and the upbringing and the culture in the country. So that's half a victory. He said in putting black people in political office is half a victory because more than half of them, and he was very nice, he said they ain't worth, he said some real wild shit. It wasn't even diddly squat. He said they ain't worth diddly. You know what? It was a very, very nice, super soft thing to say, and I'm not going to repeat it, but I'm going to ninjarize it. This is not his quote, but he said at least half of them, more than half of them, and he said 50% of them ain't worth a fuck, ain't worth a damn. He said, but 90 to 95% of the white politicians ain't worth a damn. So he said it's only half a victory because the people you put in there aren't worth a damn. He said it's only half a victory because that law, that bill doesn't change the mentality of the people. And that's all I've been saying, in anybody with common sense. But if you're just observant, you're going to come to that conclusion. And he said that back then. And actually, the interview he said that, and no, he said it back then. This is the '60s when that was obvious. So I don't get how that's not part of the discussion, a part of us, trying to make that part of the solution at this point because of prior knowledge. But let's read the chat and we'll continue with the interview. JBJ said, I believe there is only one ninja on the USA team. Can't play that soundbite during the interview, so sir. White man, just a joy to be around. Matter of fact, where's we have some libations. I can do a little bit better than that. But because of the setup, I cannot play sound bites during the interview. JBJ saying, I believe there's only one ninja on the USA team. White man, just a joy to be around. Sluggo said, JB, Venezuela is going to do it for the president that got kidnapped. Wow. Sluggo said, no Me Against the World, sir? Oh, definitely that. But on that particular day, I didn't mention Me Against the World. Yeah, Me Against the World is classic. But I'll go to Apocalypse Now and Strictly for My Niggas, and I'll zone out on those two. When I play Me Against the World, I'm definitely playing that from top to bottom, as I do the rest of them. But yeah, at that particular time, I didn't go with Me Against the World. At that particular time, I went strictly for my niggas. I went strictly for my niggas that day, sir. Sluggo said, didn't want white women to see black men naked. Wow. Again, just using that mental game, there's a reason that every time a black man was hung, he was also castrated. So when they show you those pictures of black men hung, notice where the picture is taken from, because if they went any lower, you'd see that his pants were down. Go look up when that was happening and tell me how that just dissipated in a couple of generations, because that's all it's been. Sluggo said, one generation out of slavery in the middle of the one generation out of slavery and in the middle of the Harlem Renaissance. Great point. Again, let me resist hitting the soundbite, but great point. Great point. Harlem Renaissance, Great Depression. Almost coincide. They don't talk about that. That's why I say the Great Depression was a white event. Who knows? Maybe that was actually God punishing white people. But again, they were committing massacres at the same time, so it's hard for me to accept that. You know what? I'm not going to start. 3 weeks. 2 weeks, maybe. Let me look at the calendar. But yes, sir. Preach. One generation out of slavery and during the Harlem Renaissance, or in the middle of the Harlem Renaissance. Fact. We got Chef McFeezy on the train. What's going on, sir? Thank you for coming aboard, man. Hope you are enjoying the ride thus far. Sluggo said, so the cap was essentially socialism, which scares the capitalists just as much as giving the black man an even playing field. Again, killing it as always. Preach. And that's what got him shot. Obviously not in the face if he had something to say before he died. Saying he had so much to do. Maybe he felt a need to try to right some of these wrongs. Maybe he understood karma. And Carl Weiss was like, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm sure he was considered a hero. Probably got a slap on the wrist. If convicted at all. But yeah, giving black people an even playing field is never encouraged, because we turned around slavery in less than 60 years. It was actually less than that. But by 60 years, we had turned that shit around. And actually, it was less than that. I'm adding extra years on. But we had turned that shit around already. Hence, savages with the upper hand in weaponry and numbers, doing the only thing that America has ever done repeatedly. One of the very few traditions that actually exist, and they're denying it. How are you going to deny one of the very few things that truly make America America? That shit's crazy. We have the yellow one on the train. Thank you for coming aboard, sir. Hope your lack of melanin doesn't hurt you as the sun makes its way back out and spring is around the corner. ABM said, never on time, Dark Space. Dark Space is hysterical. I'm not going to agree with never on time, but as of lately, I have been infrequent in the departure of the train. So I'm going to let that slide. None other than Chico DeBarge, Sarge from A Soldier Story, Danny Glover's father in The Color Purple, Terrence Trent D'Arby, and the nigga to sing When I'm With You. What's wrong with my brain? Also, Carrie Lewis, Tony Braxton's former husband. None other than the great ABM is on the train. Thank you for coming aboard, sir. Hope you are enjoying the ride thus far. Mac Feasy said, white people in America have no concept or knowledge of what socialism is. They confuse socialism with communism. All this despite that socialism is a part of the American infrastructure. Let me read that again. White people in America have no concept, white people in America have no concept of knowledge of what socialism is. They confuse socialism with communism. All this despite the fact that socialism is a part of the American infrastructure. Facts, sir. Facts. And we're going to continue this interview. ABM's Sluggo said, preach Mac Feasy. ABM with a round ball note. JBJ said, I knew Sluggo was picking up what I was putting down in regards to Venezuela. You're a goddamn genius. ABM said, Howard here trying to choke away an 11-point lead. That's not good. And I'm sure he's referring to college ball, so that is valid and it will be read. My apologies, sir. JBJ, the Howard Bison are moving on. That means they won. Okay, good deal. JBJ said, Danny Glover's father in The Color Purple. You hear you? Because I hear you. Yeah, he's had a lot of prominent roles, man. I'm privileged to know an individual that's done so much in this world and accomplished so much, seeing the things that he's seen, which gives him an interesting perspective on life. And I'm privileged to hear that perspective on a semi-regular basis. And I do not take that for granted. Can you imagine the skill to make yourself look older and shrink several inches to play the part of Danny Glover's father in The Color Purple? I hear you got that woman living in your house. She got 2 or 3 kids, and ain't none of them got the same daddy. All Sugar Avery kids got the same daddy. I can vouch for that. You can vouch for nothing. That's range. That is true range. This is the Underground Railroad Show, hosted by your boy that Ninja, the Black Panther series, part 2, featuring Huey P. Newton. Let's continue. Brother Huey, what role, if any, did black people have in the police department?
We printed up the first program at the North Oakland Service Center. In 66, there was about October 66 when the party was founded. There was about 1% black on the police department. Shortly before that, I think in 53, Oakland had his first black policeman who was a friend of my father's. His name was Kenner. My father broke friendship with Kenner because of his membership in the Oakland Police. Not because he was a policeman, but because at the time that the policy was that Kenner could only arrest black people, and if he could detain a white, but he would have to call a white officer. And my father thought this was degrading. It was no change from what was happening in the South. Could you talk?
So I found that interesting. Again, not surprised that the police department, when the Panthers were founded, was 1% black, which is one of the reasons why they were allowed to run amok. Again, all of this, let's please keep in mind that all the Black Panthers did was protect black people from being brutalized by an ignorant-ass police system made up of worthless, low-life, ignorant, should-have-died pieces of shit. That's it. Not attacking people. People that deserved it, by the way. Not attacking, just defending themselves. That's it. And that was too much for America. They don't want you to stand up for yourself. They don't want you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps unless you do it in a manner that they have approved of. That is why you can't be under the rule of an oppressor and or somebody that doesn't like you, because they're always going to have a problem with you doing for yourself. Anything that this country approves or co-signs or stands next to and smiles is not to our benefit, because they don't co-sign anything that's beneficial. History proves that. It has nothing to do with me. And I found it interesting that his father's friend was one of the first black police officers, and he wasn't allowed to arrest white people. And his father was the type of person that, and I think that's very important. This is why Huey P. Newton had the mentality that he did. A lot of black people nowadays are just happy to have a black person in that position. And we're talking about the 50s, if I'm not mistaken. He said it was the 50s when this happened. And his father still knew, because imagine if he was the type of black person that was happy just to have a black person there, regardless of how they had to act. I think it's very important to note this, because if you relate it to today, we're talking about the 50s, and his father had enough common sense and knowledge of self and self-respect to know that being in a position to where you're not allowed to do your job and or to be a human being and or to be black is not progress. It's bullshit. He couldn't arrest white people, so it was some symbolic bullshit. Can't imagine what he had to deal with as far as the way those people acted, and what he had to deal with white citizens that didn't respect him, especially if he couldn't arrest them and he had to hold them until the white person showed up. Nowadays, when you see black people in positions where they should at least tell the truth and speak up for the black people they claim to be a part of, and they refuse to do it, even brazenly saying so on camera while laughing, black people blindly defend that shit in 2025 and 24. And still as a matter of fact, I can go ahead and say in 2026. It's only March, but I can go ahead and say that because it's happening still. Huey P. Newton was fortunate because his father was intelligent enough to understand that you just don't. Symbolism was bullshit. If he was a police officer, then he would be allowed to be a police officer. He recognized that was wrong and had a problem with it, and that's okay. And unfortunately, as a people, for the most part, we've regressed in that regard mentally. So many of us are happy just to have somebody in that position, even if they literally say and do nothing for us. Might even speak against us, but it's okay because, you know what, another show for another day. But I thought that was a great thing that his father recognized that, and that he saw that and understood that that's not something to be praised or to thank somebody for being treated like half a person, especially when you're claiming that I'm a citizen of this country at this point, even though we're still segregated. And you know what? Anyway, it was so much easier to visualize and see a common enemy then. I think that was another thing about it. Brother Huey, what would you how would you describe the makeup of the police department?
Could you talk? Well, the police were Southerners. Matter of fact, in the 60s, they were still recruiting from Georgia because we captured some flyers. And they said that the white Southerners knew how to handle these Negroes. So the police were impolite, and they were very fast to kill a black for minor offenses such as black youth stealing automobiles. They would shoot them in the back and so forth. A dislike for the police because of their inhumane treatment of blacks.
Again, familiar rhetoric, black people being shot in the back, but how about that? They recruited inbreds from the South because, quote unquote, we know how to handle those Negroes. I'll tell you what, we know how to get them boys in line. Y'all way too soft out there. That's a goddamn problem. Y'all allow them to integrate too goddamn much. Let me come out there. I'll show y'all do that shit, goddamn it. They literally recruited motherfuckers from Georgia to implement something that they felt was necessary. The Panthers and black people themselves were constantly harassed. And once again, not attacking, warranted, 100% warranted by any measure of human decency, but still not attacking people. Just defending themselves, and that's unacceptable to the descendants of the people that say they have nothing to do with their ancestors. Interesting. Recruited police from Georgia. Brother Newton, can you give me somewhat of an abridged version or a synopsis of the 10-point plan?
Their inhumane treatment of blacks. Well, the 10-point program tried to identify the basic needs and aspirations of black people. We within the 10-point program, we came up with basically we needed education, we needed decent housing, we wanted fair treatments in the court, we wanted medical care, we wanted the availability for food and clothing for blacks, and full employment. So the program was a comprehensive program to really lay down a blueprint for community development.
Again, if you hear everything about, I just really feel the need to just reiterate that the government hated this because it was black people doing for themselves and refusing to be subjugated to abuse. The Black Panther Party never attacked anybody that didn't attack them. They only defended themselves, yet they were labeled a hate group and infiltrated and broken down by COINTELPRO and attacked by the U.S. government when they were doing what they claim you're supposed to do in this country. And the only reason I want to point that out is because I'm very aggravated by the uneducated and short-sighted people that push narratives that are not their own when speaking as if black people have never done the things that they claim we have to do to improve our situation in this country. But every time it's happened, there's always interference if it doesn't have a white stamp of approval. And if you don't address this aspect of it, what is going to stop the same damn thing from happening again? That's why I don't like the lack of information and or conversation and the diluting and remixing of words at the behest of the ancestors of the people that are the issue. That is fucking crazy. Again, we're talking about conversation. Still having the same stupid ass conversation 60 years later, by the way. And it's been this problem a lot longer than that, but let's just stay there. The Panthers were founded in 66. It's 2026. 60 years later, same bullshit. I'd have met. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and again and expecting a different result. But for some reason, you keep hearing the exact same bullshit and rhetoric that you can hear the opposer saying even in the 50s and 60s. When you have people like Brother Newton, Brother Seal, Dr. King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, James Baldwin. You have so many people with so many quotes that give you the lessons needed that squash and render irrelevant all of these cliches and things meant to keep us at arm's length. It's just disappointing that it still works. I ask one more question, then I'll read a couple of chats. Considering the time frame that you grew up in, I'm interested. Did you ever consider joining the Nation of Islam?
And I became in contact. I came in contact with the black Muslims. I was very impressed with Malcolm X and Malcolm X program, or the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that Malcolm X followed. Program was it was like a 10-point program. Matter of fact, that our program was structured after the pattern after the Black Muslim program. It was minus the religion, and I think that I became disillusioned with the Muslims after Malcolm X was assassinated. I think that I was following not Elijah Muhammad or the Muslims, but Malcolm X himself.
Let me make sure I didn't leave that one short.
Malcolm X himself.
No, I didn't. Okay. This is the Underground Railroad Show hosted by your boy, That Ninja. Let me read a couple of chats and then I'll continue with the interview with brother Huey P. Newton. And I just once I started doing the show, it just caused me to do research. Once I started doing research, I started looking into history. Once I looked into it, I realized how much bullshit we were fed. And it just it grew the appetite for knowledge and just caused me to continue to go down that, for lack of a better word, that proverbial rabbit hole and just continue to gather information because it, again, for lack of a better way to describe it, it was feeding my soul. Because, you know, when you've been fed so much bullshit, to actually get some nutrients and something that's actually pure and organic to a degree, it just feels good. So the more I looked into things, and I'm like, God, these lying motherfuckers at every turn, at every damn thing I ever looked at. And then I found things where I was saying, well, why didn't we learn about this? Why didn't we learn about that? And as I got older, I understand why. But these are the things, again, if the Panther Party was left alone and left to their own devices, I think that despite the normal disagreements that are going to come along, there would have been a form of it, and we would have been it would have been a benefit. Since the school system was never going to educate us properly, there would have been educational centers sponsored by the Panthers that would have actually taught us our real history, and then you could have a sense of self, and we would be so much better off as a people by now. But again, anytime we try to do that, they fight it with the full force of everything they have. They'd rather do that than just be semi-decent. They'd much rather do all of that than just be semi-decent. And they've proven that shit. And as the yellow one would say, as ABM would say, their resume is impeccable. Their resume is impeccable. I don't know why so many people want to deny them. Because the resume, once again, is impeccable. I mean, that it's a beautiful resume. Like, God damn, y'all don't fuck around. Look at this shit. Jesus, consistently too. Look. That resume is a motherfucker, boy, I'm telling you. JBJ said, that boy's got talent. Appreciate it, sir. JBJ said, quote, a lot of black people were just happy to have other blacks in prominent roles. End quote. He said, that's deep. That's what I feel, unfortunately. And I understand possibly at one point just to see that felt like so much progress. But again, in the 50s, that man understood that his friend becoming a police officer but not being allowed to arrest white people was a complete and total slap in the face. And I think that his ability to process that information probably was having a sense of self and still being so close, and that's one generation, maybe a generation and a half away from slavery. He still has knowledge of himself and fully understands who he is around and who he's dealing with. So that was unacceptable. So that's why it's so important to have a sense of history, because the way it's going, if this phase, if it goes away, we're going to have a lot of people. That's why I was encouraged by some of the comments when I was looking at these things. We're going to have a lot of people with no sense of who they're here with, no sense of history. A people without a sense of their history is like a tree with no roots. Forgive me for not knowing whose quote that is, but the lack of knowledge of self is why they can get away with so much propaganda. Again, the purpose of me doing the show, what I patterned it after, my little motto is I hate misinformation. I hate misinformation. I think it's our number one problem. Our problem meaning black people. Our number one problem is being misinformed. I think armed with the proper knowledge, they wouldn't even be able to play the game and turn us the way that they are able to do it now. And without that, it's just going to be the next step. Now, the next step would just be to be decent and come to a compromise. I don't even think they're capable of that shit. So the next step is going to be some type of conflict where they're going to manufacture an issue because we're no longer acting, to quote Brother Newton, in a desired manner. Allow me to read chat. McFeezy said, understanding the American mindset towards black people is to have black people subservient and dependent on the white nationalist hierarchy of America. Anytime black people become self-sufficient and forward progressing with our own policies, financial services, etc., black people are, denigrated as enemies of the state and have violence meted out against them. Let me read that again. And again, they claim they want us to, I'll go back to the bootstraps quote, but anytime it's been done, there's been government interference, which means interference by the country, which illustrates an underlying hate. McFeezy said, understanding and let me stop trying to give the 3Ks since I can't hit the sound bites. Understanding the American mindset towards black people is to have black people subservient and dependent on the white nationalist hierarchy of America. Anytime black people become self-sufficient and forward progressing with our own policies, financial services, etc., black people are denigrated as enemies of the state and have violence meted out against them. Every single time, sir. Sluggo said, once America got rid of our prominent freedom fighters, I find it odd that no other leaders have emerged. I think potential leaders either got paid off or fell for the idea that we'd be better off fighting from within the government. That has clearly been a failed strategy. Preach, Sluggo, and McFeezy agrees, telling Sluggo to preach. But it's obviously a failed policy, sir. Failed strategy, rather, but I think they've taken out, I think they have enough wherewithal to take out people before they can even get to that point. People don't understand the significance of Tupac being killed. That wasn't a small thing. It really wasn't. Dr. King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers. Untimely death of Khalid Abdul Muhammad. There have been I don't think you ever would have got Pac to get on air and say that police shooting black people is black people's fault because we don't got daddies. And there's a very prominent rapper that said that. I'm paraphrasing. I could give you the whole quote. But he's saying if you don't got a father at home, you're not going to listen to authority. So when the police stop you, you're not listening. So he's not even talking about the underlying hate for black people in a crooked police department. He's blaming the victim for getting shot and saying that black fathers ain't shit. I don't think Tupac would have did that so he could be part of a sports organization. I just don't think he was that type of cat. He had too much knowledge. And again, he was brought up by the Panthers and understood who they were and what they stood for, which led to his mentality and the way that he thought. I just don't think he would have done something like that. But that's a great question, Sluggo. I think they take him out. I think they get rid of him or they pay him off or they run a smear campaign. And because so many of us still don't understand who we're dealing with, the same people we have a problem with can run article after article and make you hate people that are for your benefit. So listening to somebody that doesn't care about you at all tell you how this person is bad because they say so. That's pretty much what happens. When they can see it coming, if anything that actually benefits us, they're going to try to tear it apart with the media, with smear campaigns, with infiltration, bitch ass police. It's going to be the same shit as it always is. They're going to say you're a hate group, even though the Aryan Nation has not been labeled a hate group. Neither has the KKK. Neither has the Proud Boys. Neither has Congress. Not really. This is the Underground Railroad Show, hosted by your boy That Ninja. The Black Panther series part 2. Let's continue with the Q&A with brother Huey P. Newton. Considering yourself and Bobby Seale's age at the time, did the growth of the Black Panther Party surprise you at all, or did you expect it?
The Black Panther Party felt that we would quickly become a national organization when blacks across the country saw what we were doing in Oakland by driving out what we call the oppressive army of police and controlling our community, the institutions in the community. We felt that the government's next move would be to bring in a National Guard to recapture these institutions, and this would connect us to the international movement of the workers' movement, the international proletarian movement, such as what's happening in Cuba, and we're very impressed by the Cuban Revolution. And at the time of the creation of the Black Panther Party, I was introduced to Marxism, and I think I had read a book called the Materialism and Empirical Criticism, and by Ivy Lenin. And at that time, that it was pointed out that there are many contradictory social forces, and if you knew what to increase or decrease at a particular time, that you could cause a transformation. And so we were trying to increase the conflict that was already happening, and that was between the white racism, the police forces in the various communities and the black communities in the country. And we felt that we would take the conflict to so high a level that some change had to come.
Okay, so obviously you had expectations because there was a need for the Black Panther Party and what you were doing at the time. You felt that the growth would be substantial. So that's very impressive, especially considering at the time you and Brother Bobby Seale were, I don't even think 25 years old yet. So quite impressive. Quite impressive. The mainstream media has often tried to paint the Panthers as a hate group, attacking police, the bullshit imagery that they give with their short-sighted view. But they never really talk about everything that the Panthers do for the community. Can you give me an example of the Black Panther Party doing something or using their influence or power to improve something in the community?
Yes, I went to Santa Fe Elementary School in North Oakland, and while I was there, that many children were hit by cars and so forth. There was no traffic light in front of the school. There's a very busy street, Market Street crossing the school. So one of the first action of the Black Panther Party was to go down with our arms and be traffic police. At 3:00 when the school was let out, we would stop the traffic and allow the children to pass. Of course, this was bringing an army of police in the area. They would take over the traffic jam that would occur. So, and also they would attempt to arrest us for bearing arms. But they would become aware, which they were not, that the law provided for us to bear arms at that time. So we went to the city council and asked them to put up the planning commission of the city council, the Oakland City Council. So the Oakland City Council said that they had already passed some policy to put up a traffic light, but it would be about 5 years from October 66. And we weren't satisfied with that. So we went to the community and gathered a few hundred or maybe even thousand or so signatures. And took those to the city council. We also would still police when the police were not there. We would police the area, and every time we would try, the police would take over. So the purpose was served anyway. The traffic light quickly went up in about 3 or 4 months after that event. Well, every time we
I found that interesting. Again, this just an example of something that the Black Panther Party would do that wouldn't be talked about. But kids are being, and I had to assume these are mostly black kids, which is probably why they had a lack of empathy. The same lack of empathy America, the country, and the news media, the police department, the judicial system has anytime anything happens to a black person, a black child, a black kid, a black woman, or a black man for that matter. There's an extreme lack of empathy, a lack of coverage. I can say lack of empathy because there's a lack of coverage on the story. Example, because let me slow down. I'm going to give an example because most people just say things with no backup because they're giving you another person's narrative that they didn't bother exploring themselves. 10 black people killed in Buffalo. They did not cover that shit. To this day, people don't know about that shit. To this day. By a psychotic ass colonizer who went there with the intention to kill black people. Picked up calmly by the police. It wasn't Dylan Roof. That's somebody else, I think. That name's in my head, but I think he did something else. I can't remember which one that was. A lot of psychotic Caucasians that have done things in this country. It's hard to keep up. If a black person tells the truth that might offend somebody claiming to be Jewish, it makes national news. 10 black people murdered by a cracker who wanted nothing other than to hurt black people. They can't cover that because then they can't push the racism doesn't exist narrative. So again, no empathy for kids being hit because this intersection is busy. The Panthers start guarding this section, stopping traffic so kids can walk safely across the street and actually get home without being hit by fucking cars. I have to think that if white kids were being hit, they put up a goddamn street light. They agreed to put one up and said, we're going to do it in 5 goddamn years. These are basic common sense things that the Panthers and black people were asking for in the goddamn 60s. These are basic things. It is 1966. If it's one of the first things they did, this had to be 66 or 67. And they're fighting them on a street light when children are being hit. They do something about it and the police show up. Well, you're not going to do it. We're going to do it now. So it's not about protecting the kids. It's about not allowing these niggas to show that they're doing something positive or that they're having positive influence or impact. A pathetic, worthless ass group of individuals. And they changed the law for being allowed to carry arms just because black people were doing it when if anybody needed that shit, it's us. It's the only thing that made those motherfuckers act right. And even then, Brother Huey P. Newton was speaking on them getting military grade type weapons. It's all a result of us not taking bullshit. And again, at what point do we attack them? In any cases you try to make, I can offer you something to dismiss the fact that you're calling it an attack. Because I know 3 places you might go, and those were not attacks. That was retaliation for a lack of response from the body responsible for governing the police department. And it was well warranted and well overdue. Once again, salute to those 3 gentlemen. Side note, I'm watching Criminal Minds Resolution or whatever, the new one they made where you got about 3 seasons of it, kind of enjoying it, right? those assholes mixed in. They were talking about, they if you're familiar with Criminal Minds, they hunt crazy ass people. They were talking about some crazy person, whatever the hell they were describing them as. Don't you know those motherfuckers wrote Chris Dorner as a reference point? Evil motherfuckers. Chris Dorner was warranted for what he did. Chris Dorner reported a white female police officer, ignorant bitch, who kicked a handcuffed suspect, because that's what cowards and poorly raised, ignorant, worthless motherfuckers do. You can't fight me now, so let me kick you. If it wasn't for this job and these handcuffs, I wouldn't even speak to you, but I'm tough now. He turned her in. The police department turned on him, betrayed him, got him fired, fucked up his money, got his bank accounts froze. And he gave them what the fuck they deserved. And you're calling him a psycho or crazy? No, he defended himself. He did the right thing. The psychos were the entire goddamn police department. Evil ass motherfuckers trying to slip that in. They never mention any of the white people that have fucked up this country that still exists to this day, including the goddamn president. But you're labeling a man that fought back when he was done wrong a goddamn psychopath? You can't even find a picture of that nigga when he wasn't smiling. What he did was retaliation for being treated wrongly. What y'all said was, yes, this ignorant, worthless white bitch kicked this suspect, but we're okay with that. The one thing we're not okay with is you telling on the cop no matter what they do. No reform, just a bunch of worthless bastards saying, we're going to do what we're going to do, and y'all are going to say nothing. Man, you better keep something on you. Not worry about a goddamn costume. We don't cause problems. It's no different what the Black Panthers did. I'm good, just leave me alone. But all that begging for your life because somebody's having a bad day, no. Absolutely insane. I was so pissed off when they did that shit, I turned. I said, God damn it, I was trying to watch the series. Now I can't watch. Same way Law and Order always had to mention OJ. You couldn't mention one of the 3,000 white people, including the first 12 to 14. No, every president, but especially the first 14. That y'all referencing OJ when you're talking about people that murder. Go to the fucking, you know what? I'm sorry. Back to the interview. Somebody can't be in charge of that. That is such bullshit. Such bullshit. I digress. Chris doing a reference. I said, you out loud in the house by myself. I said, you motherfucker. I turned that shit off immediately. Turn the landman. I said, ain't that a bitch? That was fucked up. Brother, as a result of patrolling the police, was the Black Panther Party made a target by the police? And did you inform anybody that joined the party of the dangers that accompany being a member of the Black Panthers?
Every time we go out on the police alert patrols or surveillance patrols, that I would feel we might not come back. I felt that the police might shoot us because they were very disturbed, to say the least, about the presence of blacks with guns. And some of the works of Fidel Castro, when he was in the Sierra Maestra. As a matter of fact, before he left Mexico, that he asked that everyone give their name of their first of kin or someone to be notified in case of their death. And when people had to do that in his guerrilla organization, everything became very serious. And so we would, before we went on our first patrol, and anyone who would join us after, we would always ask who should be notified in case of their death. And this would make it very serious to the person.
That was a very interesting and I thought a very prominent point. Not you weren't misleading anybody, but not only that, taking that information from, I believe he said what Castro did, who's the person I need to notify in case of your demise, in case something happens to you. Which is informing anybody that's a part of this, what we're doing is serious. We're not attacking them like they attacked us throughout the years and they're still attacking us. We're not doing what is warranted by any measure of human decency. We're not doing what's warranted, but we will defend ourselves. And this is what pissed off America and the police department and the federal government. How dare you defend yourself against our tyranny? And I don't want that to be lost. This weren't attacking anybody. The imagery and defending themselves was too much for these ignorant ass motherfuckers. I don't want that to be lost. But I thought it was a great point that he who's the next of kin I need to notify, because that does make you understand what you're about to be a part of. Brother Huey, we're still dealing with this 60 years later, but can you give me an example of what I would deem police-sanctioned murder through possibly some obscure law?
If there's reason cause to believe that a felony is being committed, and if the defendant flees, it's the right of the police to detain him to capture him with any means necessary, and that's including shooting the person. Dow was accused of tampering with a lock in the back of a store, and he was shot in the back with a shotgun in Richmond, and there was some question whether he was walking through the alley or whether he was actually trying to break into the store.
So again, we're talking about the 60s, and it's the same excuse, the same ignorant behavior, the same culture that's being denied. I still remember, on social media where a lot of cowards go to play. A cat that went to school with us, when I say us, I mean black people. The school wasn't all the way black then because it was middle school, not my high school. But in the middle school, there was still enough of us where he obviously couldn't be himself. But as we're being murdered by the police, you see all these descendants of savages sanctioning what the police are doing and pretending like they don't know what they're doing and being comfortable doing it because they know for a fact so many people are like-minded. So they know they're not going to offend anybody, talking around the fact that black people are being murdered, saying things like, I support the boys in blue. I had a little back and forth with him while I, gave facts, and I think I used too many big words. I should have really dumbed it down. Perhaps they didn't understand, but I'd imagine they were just engaging in the normal American tradition of playing stupid and playing victim. But I said, you supporting this is supporting the mistreatment and murder of anybody that looks like me. And you wouldn't act like this. I didn't say this, but he would not have acted like that in school. And I'm just taken back by that behavior. I'm just not that type of individual. I wasn't raised that way. So I can't imagine. I'm not going to behave in any manner on social media that I wouldn't in person. And I know there are so many people that weren't raised properly that will act in a manner that they would never act if they were one-on-one with that person in the alley. And I just don't understand being raised like that. But I'll never forget how brazen that cat was. And I'm like, again, but the only thing that was happening was black people being murdered for no reason by the police and white people breaking their neck to defend it. So if you don't address the problem, like black people still aren't doing, you still work your way around to finding a way to never say anything about the people that apparently are your God. Because you won't disrespect God. No matter what they do, somehow it comes back around to we need to vote or damn you black men. 60 years of the same stupid shit. I digress. Not stopping a real hate group, stopping a group of people that dare to defend themselves. Writing laws to where a police officer can say, yeah, he was touching that back door. He's running away. He's not a threat, but I'm going to shoot him in the back with his shotgun because I enjoy this shit. And having to argue about whether that's right or wrong. And we're still doing that now. And the people that are in position to do something about it act like they don't see it and won't speak out against a murderer because he wears a certain goddamn costume. And the average dumbass, ignorant, Trump voting, sister fucking non-bathing, degenerate of society, spreading the disease that is their existence to this day, will be more offended by my verbiage than the actions of the people we're speaking of. To quote James Baldwin, I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. Once again, this is the Underground Railroad Show hosted by your boy, That Ninja, the Black Panther Party Part 2, focusing on Huey P. Newton. Let's continue. Brother Huey, if you don't mind me asking, can you articulate what happened the night you were attacked and shot by the police department?
He was actually trying to break into the store. I had been to a party meeting, and after the meeting broke up, I went down on 7th Street, which was an all-night spot for food. And as I drove down, I noticed police following me. And finally, the police stopped me on 7th and I think 7th and Willow. And the police came around to my car, and there was a backup. So there were 2 police cars, and so the police. I don't know whether he followed me because he had discovered who I was, but he asked my name. I gave him my name, and he told me to get out of the car. I asked the police, was there any reasonable cause to stop me? And he just said, get out of he just repeated, get out of the car. As I got out of my car, I took my book with me. There was a passenger who also was a party member riding in the car also. And as I started to walk, the police then told me to walk back to his car. And as I walked back to the car, I turned around and started to read the reasonable cause to stop law from my law book, Alcorn and Frickley. And the police then told me that, he had every right to stop me and to go to the car. And I continued to read, and he pulled his revolver and shot me. I was wounded in the stomach. And there was a lot of gunfire. When I was shot, I became unconscious. There was many people on the street at the time. One police officer was killed. It was finally concluded that, by my attorneys anyway, that he was killed by a shot from his back by the second police officer. The second police officer also shot. He was shot about 5 times, and the first police officer about 3 times. At the time that I was not armed, the police officer, the pathologist discovered that the police was shot by his own weapon.
How did you get to?
So again, same tactics, illegal traffic stop. When you read the rights, they outburst, and they got all the little techniques now. Again, like the humane, decent thing to do if you weren't an ignorant, low-life, worthless, poorly raised piece of shit would be just to improve your behavior, and you could start living in this country that you claim to be America the Beautiful. But they would much rather double down on being a worthless piece of shit than just being decent. What are you mad about because somebody reading? Are the words penetrating your military grade bulletproof vest? So black people are supposed to deal with these motherfuckers pretending to be scared, yelling and screaming, acting like bitches, unnecessarily touching, always trying to do some stupid shit. But if you calmly say some shit that's actually right, you're supposed to cower. That's psychological warfare and a total and complete and total bullshit, especially when that's a group of people constantly screaming they don't see color. Your actions don't fucking say that. Your actions say that's the only goddamn thing you see, quite frankly. If I'm not mistaken, he was charged with shooting those police officers, but he was shot in the gut. If I remember correctly, he said he kind of passed out. So just surmising. Obviously, one police officer just letting loose shot the other one. But, you know, I'm not sure who. I mean, I'm hopeful that it's a Marvin Harrison type situation. For those that don't remember, it was basically, I'm thinking that the community had his back. I'm hoping that's what happened. If not, that was just some extreme marksmanship by who may or may not have been in the passenger side. But all of those shots had to come from somewhere. One cop did shoot another one, but the other one caught something from some damn well. Point being that, and I remember when this happened because it's the same thing it always is. You know, people just repeating whatever the fucking media says. But the bitch ass Florida network ran a story on Marvin Harrison where he went back and fixed up his old community, and he used to take his son there. And they were on air criticizing him for going back to his neighborhood because as white people, they didn't understand how ignorant it sounded to say, how dare you go back and be around people that you grew up around? Because we think they're animals. You should think they're animals. You should be happy you're around us. They criticize him for building up his old neighborhood. Let me say that again. They did an entire article about it and a story about it. And those white reporters, probably growing up in privilege, criticized somebody who came out of that neighborhood, made well, and he dared to go back and fix it up because that obviously upsets them. They were saying that openly like it was common sense because amongst themselves, that type of ignorance is acceptable. What people don't remember is that story that came out that he was allegedly had an issue. Somebody was doing some bullshit in his neighborhood. He allegedly was in the street shooting at him with 2 guns. And it's the same old thing when the article came out, black people, oh, he's done, seemingly happy that something bad happens to a black person. I don't have that disease. Luckily for me, I wasn't raised poorly like so many of us are that really take pride in any time something bad happens to a black person. Can't wait to celebrate it. I'm not fucked up like that. I celebrate other people getting having bad times. Say what you want about that. I really don't give a shit. But point being that the police couldn't get him. You know why? Because he went back and built his neighborhood up and the neighborhood had his back. What if the people that had helped out the have-nots and the have-nots had their back? These motherfuckers would be obsolete. He was an example of what to do. I tell you something else he did. He never talked to the media either. They couldn't run any clips and try to edit some things together. He never talked to them. He fixed up his old neighborhood. The neighborhood had his back. And the one person that I think was going to say something mysteriously got shot, if I remember correctly. Nothing happened to Marvin Harrison. The media went after him, tried to run a story into the ground. Nothing happened because nobody in the neighborhood talked. And I remember talking about that at length because it was an example of how you should be. That was the blueprint that should have been followed. That's one of the most impressive things Marvin Harrison ever did, if you ask me. Sluggo said they tried to pay Malcolm off and he stood on business. Facts. Facts. Mac Feezy telling Sluggo to preach. Sluggo said, I wonder if the Panther started traffic control at schools that we see all over the country. Great point. As you pointed out, they started the free lunch programs. Again, since we're doing for ourselves, let us do it so we can look like heroes. Just fill out this just fill out this paperwork. But how about that? How about the crossing guard situation where it's safe for children to cross the street? I bet it did start it, but they would never give them credit for it. And again, I know what they're going to do, but it just annoys me when black people join that narrative. At least become knowledgeable, but don't follow a narrative that you haven't researched. Because it may be the narrative of somebody that doesn't give a single solitary fuck about your black ass. Great point, Sluggo. Sidney Jackson said, crackers always gonna crack. Facts, sir. Sidney said, Dylan Roof is the savage that shot up the church. Thank you. I was getting my names mixed up. Peter, Dylan, no, what is his fucking name? Good, look it up. It's right there on the edge of my head. Mac Feezy said, one of the main factors that no leaders have emerged is there's a lot of disconnect with some Southern black folks who still have an enslaved mentality that prevents them from being progressive and breaking away from the whites. Give these black folks a bucket of chitlins and a pan of cornbread. They'll put on a grand minstrel show for whites and go against things that would be of great importance to the black community as a whole. I'll read that one more time. One of the main factors that no leaders have emerged is there's a lot of disconnect with some Southern black folks who still have an enslaved mentality that prevents them from being progressive and breaking away from the whites. Give these black folks a bucket of chitlins and a pan of cornbread. They'll put on a grand minstrel show for whites and go against things that would be of great value to the black community as a whole. I'm sorry, of great benefit to the black people as a whole. I see your correction. Great benefit to black people as a whole. The only thing I'll say to that is that I think it extends further than the South. But I will not deny that there's a lot of that going on in the South. That's the only thing I'll push back on a little bit, but I do not disagree, sir. Preach. And again, while the interview is going on, I cannot play these sound bites. Sluggo said, facts, Mac. These folks should be ostracized and not feel safe around the black masses. Nigga preach again. Facts, Mac. These folks should be ostracized and not feel safe around the black masses. It has to be that way. You can't just dismiss us and shit on us in public and then come around us and it's all good. It really shouldn't be that way. Matt Feezy says, Sluggo, I work with a lot of them, and it is an existence that and it's a sad existence that they're like that. I know a lot of cats like that, man. There's a lot of reasons for it. Some is a lack of knowledge, some is upbringing. I'll just leave it right there. Upbringing, heritage, birthplace. I'll just leave it there. But facts, sir. It's a sad existence, sir. Sluggo said, I see a Black Panther flyer promoting 10,000 free bags of groceries. Let me find out food pantries got their idea from the Black Panthers. Again, these are all great points. Because what has Western civilization always done? Stolen everything that we've ever created and claimed that they were the proprietors of it. That is, again, one of the very few traditions that this country, and quite frankly, the Anglo-Saxon America has. Stealing shit and claiming that it's theirs. That's very much an American thing. Extremely, very much an American thing. No exaggeration there. History backs that up with irrefutable fact. And a multitude of dialogue. Both written and audio. But Sluggo, great point. I believe Huey P. Newton said that they fed over 70,000 children a day. Let me say that again. He said that they fed over 70,000 children a day. I remember that quote. 70,000 children a day, I believe is what he said. Sounds about right, because if you do that, it eliminates You can't. What was it? You can't lead the people if you can't feed the people. If you're providing knowledge and protection and feeding people, they're going to listen to you and subscribe to what you're saying. The government will get off of their ass to try to stop that. Again, if they focused on fixing this country as much as they did keeping black people where they wanted them, this country might actually be worth a goddamn. 70,000, sir. I can go back and play that clip. I don't think I'm mistaken about that quote. If you consider all the places that they had offices and where they set up the food programs that Bobby Seale talked about, he said they fed over 70,000 a day. He even talked about how many of those newspapers they got, those publications they put out, and it went out every week or every day on time. He said that's being organized. Because I took a earlier interview from Bobby Seale and I have a later interview from Huey P. Newton. But let's continue. We're almost at the conclusion of this interview. Brother Huey, after being shot by the police, I'm just curious. We hear stories about. I saw a picture of Malcolm X being carried out on a gurney with white police leading. I can't imagine they were in a hurry, and I can't imagine they gave a fuck. We hear stories of Dr. King being choked by police and or doctors in the hospital that he was in because, again, in a hospital ran by white people, when you're a black leader, it's a combination for disaster. But again, we can go back to Marcus Garvey trying to give us our own shit. Every time we try to do that, they want to get rid of it. They want to control what's going on. You really need to know the history. But let me just continue. Considering all of these things that we've heard, were you mistreated at the hospital, or was there any abuse on the part of the hospital staff?
How did you get to
My next recollection was or my conscious was that the police were beating me on the gurney that the doctors were preparing me for surgery. Matter of fact, I became one of my hands was the nerves were gone and in my left hand, and the police were spitting on me and so forth. There was a picture taken by some of the reporters who barged into the emergency room, and the police beat the reporters also. But one reporter got away with one picture that showed that I was shackled on the gurney, and while the police said they beat me because I was struggling with them.
Again, after being shot, getting prepped for surgery, shackled or chained down to the gurney, tight enough to where his arm is numb. They said that he was being aggressive, therefore they were beating him on the gurney. And I think it's notable that this is after this is actually 1989. And again, you know what happened. I'm not going to focus on that part of his life, but we know what happened in 1989. This is actually the year of this interview. If you go back to 1968, when he was wrongfully locked up, after the shooting he was just talking about, I just what they did to him was they put him in what was essentially solitary isolation. Even on his second stint, where they convicted him of voluntary manslaughter, they locked him up under special conditions, so he was once again isolated. And at the time of his 1968 interview, he said he wasn't abused or anything because basically the black population in the prison wasn't going to have it. It would be a problem. But I don't know what happened for the 2 years that he was locked up essentially in solitary confinement. And the same thing again, I think in either 70 or 79. I want to address the alleged fraudulent fund misappropriation of funds, which I think is just the government on some bullshit. But every time he was in custody, he was abused and not allowed to be around the populace because of allegedly them being worried about his influence. But it's psychological warfare to isolate an individual because, and let me try to remember that word, people actually need to, and I could say it simply, but there's a term I like to use. You actually need to be around and communicate with human beings. You'll literally go crazy if you're isolated. And they were purposely attempting to, under the guise of safety for the prison or safety for themselves, they were attempting to torture him mentally by isolating him in that manner. Trying to determine this one right here. I'm going to have to start this one first. I have a. I believe this is a further comment about the abuse from the police department. Let me make sure.
I was held for murder in the first degree. I was shipped to not to the county jail, but to San Quentin.
Okay. Brother Newton, could you elaborate on not only the physical abuse, but what else they did to abuse you in the system? And I got ahead of myself speaking about the isolation, but he's going to elaborate on that.
Prison, and I was put on death row there. And at the time, they said this is necessary because at the time the county hospital did not have a detention center. So they, as they put me on death row, a group of police were on either side, 3 in the front, 3 in the back, and I was on the gurney. And they were chanting "Dead man, dead man." Later, I found out that this was the usual procedure of any condemned man who was coming off of death row to see his attorney and so forth. Of course, I wasn't condemned yet.
So again, I got ahead of myself, but after he got, he was had healed up medically, they still kept him isolated from the rest of the prison, and that's what he was speaking about. Now, Brother Newton, and I'd like to, hear your thoughts on this because I don't know if I agree if my research is correct. What are your thoughts on "quote unquote" using dirty or aggressive language to communicate the point of the Black Panther Party?
Eldridge Cleaver was impressed with the dirty word movement, and this influenced Bobby Seale. I was always against the use of dirty words because it didn't recruit anyone while it alienated other people. Many of the churches across the country allowed us to use their facilities for the Breakfast for Children program. Matter of fact, at the time, we were feeding about 75,000 children a day. And they eventually put us out of. They wouldn't let us use their facilities because of the profanity.
Okay, and I see your point there, but let me offer this. What I would say to that is, considering what Black people are going through and still going through, if the only thing we're using is aggressive language, that should be more than acceptable, and there should be a lot of thank yous and graciousness along with that, if the only thing you're getting is strong verbiage. Secondly, excuse me, and maybe did he say 75,000 or did he say 7,500? I know I just listened to him, but what I'm saying, maybe I thought he said, maybe he said 7,500. That's still quite significant. But either I was off, either it was 75,000 and I was off by 5, or he said 7,500. But again, that's quite significant. But he said, but let's think about this now. The church stopped letting them take care of, and forgive me for forgetting the number that fast, feeding that many kids because of so kids don't need to use your facilities to get a meal that they need because you don't like verbiage. Yet and still, your God tells you to forgive the people that you should be attacking because you're always about nonviolence. So forgiveness for them, but zero tolerance for black people because of their verbiage. That's fucking stupid. Do you have the ability to feed the kids or feed people the way they were doing it? Then you should pray about that shit and get over it. That's when being religious that's when religion goes wrong. That I hear what you're saying, Brother Newton, but I think that's more of the short-sightedness of the church. And I think that any colonizer being offended by verbiage with their actions, they're not in a moral position to do that. So I can't say that I agree with that. But I want to point this out too. This is 1989 after all of this unimaginable harassment, physical and mental. Isolated for 2 years in jail, another stint being isolated for several months. And I'm not sure what happened on that last time that he was arrested, if he was allowed to conjugate with other inmates or not. And these are just the things that are noted. That police stop where he got shot. Do you think that's the only time he got stopped by the police? Harassed? Brother Seal said every Black Panther office got their door kicked in at least once, some twice. Brother Bobby Seale's home, his door was kicked in multiple times. Again, if that's how they're going to act if we just defend ourselves, there's no reason to hesitate. Because you can't use the excuse or the cowardly excuse that they're going to do something, they're already doing something, and we're doing nothing. That's stupid. The behavior just hasn't changed. So I hate to hear the same bullshit excuses when they were doing the same thing in the 60s. They're not confused about anything. As Brother Malcolm said, they don't mind us suffering. They just want us to do it peacefully. I'm going to read a couple chats and then I'll continue. We got 334 on the train. Thank you for coming aboard, sir. Thank you for that highlight earlier of the youngin', and very impressive what he's doing. Very impressive. Okay, it was 75,000. So I said 70,000 kids. It was actually 75,000. So again, that's hella impressive. I shorted them actually. I actually shorted them. 75,000, not 70,000. Sluggo said, I bet the church was pressured to disengage from the Black Panthers. Probably so, but if they're feeding 75,000 fucking kids and or people, you can get the fuck over language, and especially when the language is aimed towards your oppressor. What's your problem? This is in a segregated time. So it's probably pressured, but what's your logic? I don't get that. Don't get it at all. And we're coming towards the end of this interview. Just a few more questions, and I appreciate your time. Brother Huey, was there logic behind calling the police department pigs? And if so, could you articulate that logic?
Wouldn't let us use their facilities because of the profanity. We started to use the symbol of a pig to identify the police. I don't know who first presented that symbol, but I knew that images had to be changed. Most of my young life, I was a student, and I know sociologically that words, the power of the words stigmatize people, and we felt that the police needed a label other than that fear image that they carried in the community. So we used the pig as a rather low-lifted animal, in order to identify the police, and it worked. The community picked it up, and it sort of put the police in another category, a category that was not respected, and a category that the community could deal with, and the police were very offended by it. So it heightened the contradiction between the community and the police.
And I think it's important to note, Brother Newton, that you're talking about the power of verbiage, and the media in America uses this all the time, and that's why it's important that, you'll get the exasperation and the dismissal of black guys wearing black always being negative, white being associated with something angelic. And again, if you study the history of white people, that doesn't go together. And again, I know that, telling the truth about history apparently is an attack on them, but actually attacking us is just a misunderstanding, and we should act appropriately. But that's fine, because that's an American tradition. But if you're actually studying history, that shit doesn't go together. That's why I will not use that term, Clorox washed. I say not washed, but I don't say blackballed. I say whiteballed, because it doesn't make sense. Blackball is supposed to symbolize something sinister, something heinous. It doesn't. It makes, if I'm trying to use words that actually articulate my point, I'm not going to say blackball. That's why I always say whiteball, because it doesn't make sense to say blackball. But words mean something. Words are powerful, and symbolism is powerful to a degree. So I think that taking power away from them and calling them, I was impressed by the fact that there was strategy behind it, and I understand the strategy, because verbiage means something, and it's used as a weapon often. And if you're able to articulate yourself and use the English language in an articulate way, it opens different doors and opportunities for you. So language means something, and your ability to articulate said language means something. So great point. Great point. And Brother Newton, I thank you for your time. Just a few more questions. And again, the other thing I wanted to make sure I pointed out is that these opinions that he's giving now, including that last one that I didn't agree with, and I just stated why. This is, again, after a lifetime of being beat up by the U.S. government and white America, and some of his own people, which I'm sure was quite disheartening. But Brother Newton, can you tell me about any points of contention within the party that may have led to the dissolution and the effectiveness of the Black Panther Party?
Because I was against the use of the dirty words. Also, this was about 1969. I was also against. I was for getting rid of all the arms and just concentrate upon building local political institutions and participating in candidates for city council and so forth. David Hilliard, Bobby Seale, and Eldridge Cleaver were for the profanity, and they were, well, I don't know about Bobby Seale, but I felt that David Hilliard was leaning towards Eldridge Cleaver. Of course, the FBI and the COINTELPRO were aware of the brewing contradiction, and they took advantage of this by writing letters of threatening letters to either party. The media.
And forgive me for that slight pause. And let me just say this, and that's why I pointed out that this is after. And again, he said in 1969 he was for getting rid of guns, which is crazy considering he had just got shot by the police. But again, locked up, isolated for a couple of years. I'm not sure what he was going through in jail. And I can't imagine the type of physical and mental abuse he was dealing with during these times. But I staunchly disagree with you, Mr. Newton, on wanting to get rid of the arms. You won't even be able to run for political office or even protest without the arms. Brother Bobby Seale talked about that, and it was this was, and again, if you notice, Brother Bobby Seale also said free Huey P. Newton and talked about everything they were doing and even fundraising for him. I believe it was in '69 when he had that interview that I used, and he was in Boston, Massachusetts. So it was 68 or 69. So it had to be around the time that Huey P. Newton was relaying that he was okay with getting rid of the guns, which I staunchly disagree with. And this became a point of contention, as it should have. And these type of things are normal within any organization. But I believe this could have been worked through. But when you're mixing in COINTELPRO, government interference, when they should be watching the people that look like them because y'all cause all the problems. If they watch white people the way they watched us, this might be a decent place. Because you could cut out all the bullshit then. Obviously, we're not going to get at y'all. It would be done already. Y'all should really relax. But they don't even want us to have knowledge of self, basic dignity. We can't even have our areas and build them up without some kind of, they go out of their way to make it difficult and or label it a certain way because we're supposed to do it in a way that makes them comfortable. Jewish people don't function in a way that makes German people happy. And I only say that because for some strange reason, it's almost like I have to associate us with another group of people to put it in perspective, because the psychological warfare and slow IV drip of mental warfare that we deal with has so many of us confused. But this was a point of contention in the party, and I see why. And I staunchly disagree with Brother Newton on that. Just to elaborate the point about the media, because those are the first two words that he said. Question being, and we know what Brother Malcolm said about the media, and I just spoke about earlier how I'm very disappointed how the media can still turn us any way that they want to, and black people still say things like, if they keep talking about it, it must be true, because it never dawns on them that these people would lie in concert or in collaboration. But imagery matters. And if that image of that individual is your God, you're not going to think your God would ever lie to you like that. It's just inconceivable that they would actually collaborate or have that type of underlying hate for a group of people. And it's nothing that they have meetings about. They're just extremely short-sighted. No apologies. I'm dealing with experiences in life and documented history that cannot be argued. Documented history that they're trying to erase so that goofy ass kids don't have to feel bad. But you don't mind them seeing you act like a piece of shit when you don't get your way. So then we have to deal with a whole nother generation of ignorant bastards that act like 6-year-old Girl Scouts when they don't get what they want. But just do your thing. Interesting morals you have there. But Brother Newton, how would you describe the media's portrayal of the Black Panther Party?
Initially, publicizes where that, and it causes immediate growth. Like for an example, they covered Sacramento. They covered escorting Malcolm X's widow from the airport. While they reported the sensational parts of our movement, they neglected the community programs that were really the basis of our whole organization. They neglected reporting the development of our political our ability to politicize the community. Also, the party grew much too rapidly. Because many of the young people were very enthusiastic about the guns and about the berets, but they knew little about the community programs that were really our reason for existing.
Now, some of what Bobby Seale said kind of flies in the face of that, but obviously I respect your opinion on that. Now, obviously, again, the media's portrayal was never to really talk about the 75,000 people they were feeding a day, not to talk about the preventive health care that America didn't care to give black people, not to talk about apparently influencing and or starting crossing guards so kids don't get fucking hit and killed by non-driving motherfuckers. And if you listen to the show, you know I talk often about how the lighter hue, to quote Ali Sadiq, are terrible in school zones. Now, there are some kids that don't pay attention, but when I tell you when it comes to grown people, the lighter hue are the worst in school zones. The privilege doesn't allow them to slow down. They actually refuse to slow down for that quarter of a mile because they have somewhere to go. I almost can't count how many times I've almost seen them run over the crossing guard because they're not paying attention, either speeding, on their phone, or just deciding they want to keep going anyway. I watched two different Anglo-Saxons almost hit an Anglo-Saxon crossing guard in the rain because they were both speeding and not paying attention. And I watched that crossing guard rightfully cuss both of them out. They're the worst in school zones. I'm sorry, I drive all the time. I digress, but again, they don't talk about any of those things. Food pantries, they don't talk about any of these things, the influence and what they were doing. And again, they won't do it out of human decency, but before I allow this group to feed you and influence you, I'll give you a watered down version of what they're doing with absolutely no soul and knowledge attached to it. But this is America. I tell you what, let's get off of that because those last two questions are depressing me. Only two more questions, Brother Huey, and I appreciate the time. Could you explain to me, or in your own words, which is a dumb thing to say, but could you explain to me who Bobby Hutton was?
The reason for existing. Bobby Hutton was the first member of the Black Panther Party. He was recruited at the North Oakland Service Center in October '66. I believe he was 15 at the time. He was our first recruit, and we made him treasurer. And he was like my little brother that I never had. And he was the inspiration of the party, because the party was very youth oriented. And while he worked at the North Oakland Service Center, we tutored him and politicized him. And until he was killed, that I really couldn't not really imagine any of our party members being murdered, even though that I knew that risk took place. I was in the county jail at the time of his murder. This was the day that Martin Luther King was assassinated. And after he was killed, then it was like that. I felt that anyone in the party, I felt the party vulnerable. So he was very loved as a youth in the party and as our first member. Well,
as we all know, Bobby Hutton murdered on the day Dr. King was killed. And that's the scene I talked about in that movie Panther, that the whites had influence on, and they talked around and white-splained and tried to offer rationale for the behavior of the savages in the movie. But they really set that up like Bobby Hutton and Eldridge Cleaver did something like they ambushed the police, and then the police came and murdered them. But in no publication do I ever, because they would mention it, nobody says Bobby Hutton and or Eldridge Cleaver murdered a police officer, so the police officers murdered them. But that's the shit they showed you in the movie. If any of that was true, they would show you the attack they had on the police. That's, again, like not even really elaborating on what the 10-point plan was. Barely, just like what the media does, they barely showed the food program. Didn't mention the healthcare program. Didn't mention just feeding families. They did not mention that because along with the breakfast program and like Sluggo said, their inspiration for the food pantries is giving away food to families that needed it. It's just a shame that groups that try to advance us and do what needed to be done for us. I don't want to hear all this stupid shit about why does this group do this and this group do that and we can't do it, because those other groups aren't hated by the goddamn country. That's why. And if you continue to refuse to acknowledge that we can't fix the problem, when you refuse to look out, you can't fix the problem if you won't acknowledge the goddamn problem. And following an American narrative and blaming yourself is fucking stupid. And it only takes a little bit of study to dismiss that shit. And nowadays it's easy to do so. And you should do it. Like I say at the end of the show all the time, it's okay to think it's not illegal yet. It's okay to think. It's actually okay. Brother Newton, I thank you for your time. And I just want to end on a positive note. Because the media and this country never would do it. Could you elaborate on the Black Panther Party's community programs?
Well, the food program and the escorting the elderly to the to pick up the checks so they weren't mugged. Giving care to them was the basis of our program. Our 10-point program was aimed at creating institutions in the community that really served the community. And so these were alternative institutions that served, while those institutions that were supposed to answer most of the desires of the people in the community did not do it. So the food program, the housing program was to answer really the need of
Brother Huey P. Newton and Brother Bobby Seale.
You're a goddamn genius. You must have a goddamn IQ of 160. You are goddamn gifted.
Interesting. Excuse me as I'm there it is. Okay, that was weird. Okay. Something strange going on with the board there. We got it together. All right, on the in conclusion, that concludes the Q&A with Brother Huey Newton. I'm going to close the show out with a quote from him from a different interview that offers a perspective on something that I couldn't do anything but say.
The truth is for everybody, but everybody might not be for the truth.
To the American government and the police departments across these United States that harassed black people, period, and the Black Panther Party.
Sorry, motherfucker.
To the government and bitch ass, moist ass J. Edgar Hoover.
You rotten bugs! You're all garbage! All of you!
To the lack of history concerning the Panthers and what they actually accomplished, what they actually did, and the pride we should have felt in it, and the experience we should have had if you did not attack them and dismantle them strictly based on your ignorance, poor upbringing, lack of bathing, and strange desire to not use a wash rag.
You're robbing us, you son of a bitch. You're robbing us, you son of a bitch. You're robbing us, you son of a bitch.
When I research stories about the Panthers, and I look up dig into Bobby Seale, Huey P. Newton, Fred Hampton, Stokely Carmichael. When I look at a lot of these instances, and I look up Marcus Garvey, Garveyism, the Garveyites, the fact that he influenced Malcolm X's parents, which led to a man that I admire greatly, and I believe Brother Malcolm's teachings, Brother Farrakhan's teaching, Elijah Muhammad's teachings, Medgar Evers, James Baldwin, Dr. King, multitude of people. I believe that these are our gospels. I believe that these are our lessons. I believe that this will always be more important than any bullshit history they teach us that is completely whitewashed for no other reason than a false image of heroism and integrity and superiority and an inability to deal with who you are and how you got here. But looking into these stories, when I really learn the facts and the details, I come away with the same thought every time.
Jesus, wow, come on down and kill that monkey, Jesus.
When I hear the comments of said people that know or don't know the history, having thoughts about behavior and integrity, when they have this worthless, pedophilic, rapist, race-baiting piece of shit in the White House, and then you hear them criticize something said by a black person that they just don't like. Not that it's not true, that they just don't like. Again, in America, white actions are nothing compared to black words.
You hypocrite motherfuckers. You hypocrite motherfuckers.
Sluggo said 150 years from now, someone is going to stumble across the interview and think it actually occurred. 150 years from now, someone is going to stumble across this interview and think it actually occurred. It's possible, sir. It's possible. And that's not good. That's not good. We have to preserve history. Sluggo said, this cracker touching the American flag in his shoulder after tying the game. Lord have mercy. Sluggo, Venezuelan, please don't pull a Hollywood. That is funny. That is funny. This is the Underground Railroad Show hosted by your boy, that Ninja Man. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for the back and forth. This was the Black Panther Party series, or still is the Black Panther Party series. This is part 2, focusing on Brother Huey P. Newton. I'm going to go ahead and leave that avatar up. And I'm going to wind down for the evening. I'm going to give y'all an abbreviated outro. We're going to next get into Brother Fred Hampton. And then we're going to get into Brother Stokely Carmichael. And that will conclude the Black Panther series. I'll let you know if I decide to extend it. As a matter of fact, let me just look at the calendar right quick, because I can't remember. No, if done properly, if I do everything when I'm supposed to over the next 2 weeks, we can complete the Black Panther series. And that will lead us directly into the annual show on religion. So the next 3 weeks are spoken for. Fred Hampton, Stokely Carmichael, and the annual show on religion. So the next 3 shows are already spoken for. We still need to get the bracket show together, but we have time. We have time. There's no time limit or expiration date on the bracket show. We're going to check chat one more time. We're going to leave with words from Brother Huey P. Newton in 1968, when he was actually being interviewed while incarcerated for the alleged shooting and or murder of the shooting of one police officer and the murder of another. Sluggo said, extended, sir. You're presenting excellent content with this series. I just made because there's so much to get into, and I appreciate that, sir. I appreciate that. Again, this is what I really like to do with the show. Really things that we should have been privy to growing up, but we were malnourished in that regard. Thank y'all for the back and forth, man. I truly appreciate it. Abbreviated outro. I'm going to allow Brother Huey to take us out. And as a matter of fact, I probably need to, let me check something right quick. One quick pause. Just making sure that that's queued up. Again, thank you for the back and forth. Again, I feel like myself and us as a people were cheated. Just any of the multiple, if Marcus Garvey was left to his own devices, if all of the innovative ancestors, like the ones that built Black Wall Street, were left to their own devices, if Brother Malcolm was left to his own devices, if Dr. King was left to his own devices, if the Black Panther Party were left to their own devices, if the Not Fucking Around Coalition were left to their own devices, I think that all of these organizations, these movements, would have truly furthered the advancement of Black people, unlike the government-sanctioned NAACP that doesn't do anything that's not approved by white America, and that is fucking crazy. Once again, I promise Jewish people don't make decisions. Alleged Jewish people don't make decisions based on what German people think. And that is 100% the situation that we're in. But the history of the country is interesting and infuriating. And to quote James Baldwin, to be a Black man and to be fairly conscious or self-aware is to be in a rage almost all the time. Truly appreciate y'all coming aboard. Thank you for the back and forth. I consider said back and forth to be therapeutic, which makes all of you my de facto therapists. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for the session. Before I get out the door, RIPDT. Pops taught me to think of all I speak, but do not speak all I think. Simply put, that means that sometimes you either need to shut the fuck up or at least think about what it is you're about to say and who you're about to say it to. And as always, I take a shot for Pop, RIPDT. Love you, Pop. Appreciate y'all, and we're going to end this on some words from Brother Huey P. Newton, and I found this to be quite interesting. Once again, I appreciate y'all. Take care. We'll see y'all next time. Part 3, Fred Hampton, coming up next week. As always, take care. We'll see you next time. And be easy.
For the general welfare of the people. Now, if you just treat it per se as communism in this country, I would say that it wouldn't work. I would say until you get rid of racism, racism is a psychological thing that stems all the way back to England. And Europe in general, that when the European met the African, and that I have my own opinions about what happened during that time, or some conclusions that I've drawn about it. For instance, I think it goes so deeply psychologically as the difference in the culture of the European, the difference in the culture of the African, and particularly in how a European worship. For instance, the European had this one God that he said he find it all good, and he was created in the image of this God, and of course God can do no wrong, and that since he was God-like, he could do no wrong. And
as far as sexual drives and so forth, this had no place in God's mind, so therefore it shouldn't have any place in the European mind. And because the Europeans started to be sick then, because this was a big deviation from the human nature, sex drives. So he was looking for witches and everything else to blame his own human nature on. And he couldn't fall beneath the grace of God, so he would say that, no, I'm not causing this within myself, so someone else must be. Then you have to contact with the African, who always had a God that was we call it dualism. In Europe, you had absolutism. In Africa, south of Sahara, where most black people came, you have dualism, where the God has two or more heads, and one good head and one bad head. And the African was created in God's own image, and that when he was out of the good grace of the good head, that he would try to manipulate and get back in so that the bad head couldn't do him any wrong. But yet he recognized himself as both bad and good. So he had self-acceptance, and he didn't need to put off his human drives on other people. When the European met the African, this was a good person for him to say that these people are vulgar, these people are pagans, and every other kind of derogatory word. So this was, it had nothing to do right at the present moment of any economical thing. It was strictly a difference in culture and a sick mentality of the European. And I say that you have the European coming to America here and made up the American colony, and he brought this psychological sickness with him. And as far as an economical structure changing his sick mind, I doubt if this will happen. He needs a psychiatrist or some mental therapy. And
Amen, preacher.